Hello, and welcome to Chapter 6 of Neverwhere. So, our team is all together: Richard, De Carabas, Dor, and Hunter. And we open Chapter 6 with Richard writing a diary in his mind. So, it's italics, and it's, if he had paper, this is what he would write, but he's writing it in his head. And he's talking about on Friday, I had a job, and blah, blah, blah. He's talking about his old life, and now things are crazy. And my favorite part is that he says he has a life expectancy of a suicidal fruit fly, which which they live for like a day or two. So I feel like he's got more than that going for him. Let's hope he does, right? They're running around through the tunnels. Richard is like, "Oh, the tunnels look the same," and De Carabas is like, "Oh no, we're gonna be lost forever and we'll never find our way out." So like De Carabas is a giant smartass, and he's just kind of a dick to Richard the whole time. And Richard is like, "Yeah, well, fuck you. I'm gonna write in my mental diary some more," which I think is his way. It's kind of keep insane because he's keeping track of all the crazy things that have happened to him, and he has no perspective for a lot of them. He's learning all about this world as they go, and he's surrounded by people who know a lot about this world clearly. And Dora apologizes, but she's not very forthcoming. And Carabas is just a dick. And Hunter doesn't really talk except to say like, go this way, go that way, don't do that. Like she's straight and to the point. She's a bodyguard, so she's not conversational. Um, and he thinks that she never sleeps because they've been traveling long enough that they've had to like stop and eat and rest and such. And Richard notices like she's awake when they all fall asleep. She's awake when they wake up. So he's convinced Hunter just doesn't sleep. Carabas seems to magically produce food out of his pockets, which Richard is like suspicious of, but he's glad to be eating anything. So even if the guy's a dick, you can't hate him too much when he's your source of food, right? And there seems to be a lot of literal interpretations because remember last chapter we had the Knight's Bridge, like possessive of the word night, like nighttime Knight's Bridge, under the neighborhood called Knightsbridge. And then at the end of the last chapter, we were talking about that angel called Islington, which apparently is also a place. And and then they're talking about Shepherd's Bush is also a place in London, and there's shepherds under there. And Richard is like, "Oh, there's no shepherds under there," and they're like, "Yes, there are, and they're dangerous as well. You better hope you never meet them." So I assume they're not what I picture as a shepherd, like a guy and some sheep, and I'm guessing it's some scary kind of shepherd. But there seems to be lots of literal plays on words, so a lot of like places in around London and like the stops on the tube station, like the underground station, like the names of them seem to coincide with like funny things, um, with the underground magical world and the up above normal place names. But anyways, that's neat and such. But so anyways, they're arguing again. They're traveling. They're walking through tunnels. They're arguing about angels. And Richard's like, "Well, is it a different kind of angel from the one I'm picturing?" Because he's picturing like the generic trumpet playing, white fluffy winged, Christmas time cheruby angel thing. Peace on earth, goodwill to men. uh, so he's picturing that, and they're like, "Yes, angels are real. Let it go, Richard. Like you've seen so much crazy things. Can you let this go?" And finally, they get to the tube station, the underground station, and it's like super light and it's brightly lit and such. And they've been traveling through the darkness so long it like overwhelms Richard because he's been in the dank in the dark with them. And so being in like this normal area where there's a bunch of normal people from London above just getting on the train, and there's turnstiles and electric lighting, and it's crowded, it's busy, it's bright, it's normal people dressed in normal clothes, so it like throws him off and it overwhelms him, and like the light hurts his eyes, and it's just like this big shock. Um, and there's a guy, he's playing what's he playing? Saxophone. And he's got coins on a mat. He's got a coat in front of him, and a hat upside down, and the generic, he's a street musician, and he's playing for money, and there's a little bit of coins, but not much. And then he tries to act like he can't see them, but Richard realizes he can see them, and he's trying very hard not to. So De Carabas is like, hey, look, buddy, we need information, we need a map, we're trying to find somebody. And the guy's like, not interested, go away. And he's like, oh, well, I've got this great musical magicness to trade. If you play this specific set of notes in this specific magical order, this song will literally make people give you money. Like, this song is so good, it will make people give you money. And he's like, well, if that existed, that'd be worth more than a map of trains. And he's like, yeah, I know, I guess you'll owe me. So Carabas is really good at this whole deal making. He seems to have a lot of people owing him all the time, and he's just kind of the man with the plan, which makes sense why Dora wants to team up with him if he's so powerful and witty. So the guy is like, whoa, wait, not so fast. I'm not giving you my map without proof that this magic song magically works. So Carabas whips a whistle out of his pocket and plays the song, and people are just like so super happy and thrilled. They just start, everyone who hears him is like got this jaunt to their step, and they start tossing down coins. And like Richard says, he feels like it feels like being a young teen, and the way that the top 20 music can only make your heart skip when you're 13 years old and listening to a radio with your best friends during school lunch hour. Your best friend's transistor radio during school lunch hour. So yeah, this magic song really does work. It's a great deal. Lear, the musician, thinks it's a great deal, so he's like, yeah, okay, I'll owe you, and here's the map. And De Carabas is like, fantastic, now we know where to find the Earl. And they go down to the platform. They all jump over the turnstiles, they go down to the platform, and they're waiting for a train. And Richard's like, well, this is weird, why would a normal train take us somewhere magic? And they're just kind of hanging out by the platform waiting for the train to roll up. And a voice is over the loudspeaker, mind the gap. So it's when you're stepping off the platform onto the subway, like there's a slight gap between the platform you're stepping off of and like the little ledge, because there's like the door slides to the side and there's a little ledge and you step onto it, so there's a small gap between it, which if you use a train a lot or the underground a lot, like you're not gonna notice after a while. It'll just be like second nature to step up onto it, because it's not like a huge gap. You're not like jumping. It's like a normal step. It's just there is a gap though, and I mean like there's the rails under it, and one's live, so that's dangerous. You know, if you were to fall down, well, yeah, it's dangerous because you get smushed by the subway, but also there's live electricity down there, so yeah, it's dangerous, and yeah, you should be mindful of the gap and such, and whatever. So if you hear it a lot, you kind of forget about it. Hunter and De Carabas and Dora all have kind of moved back, and Hunter puts her hand on Richard and is like, mind the gap, and starts pulling him, get away from the gap, which he's like, that's a weird thing to do. Like, we're not even getting on this train. Why are you pulling me back towards the wall? And this giant, shadowy monster tendril wraps itself around Richard's ankle. It's like 1 second there's nothing there, and the next second there's this giant shadow beast like writhing up through the gap between the train and the platform, and it's got this smoky and unreal black tendril that wraps itself around Richard's ankle. And so he can feel the sting of it through his Levi's, which is denim jeans pants. I got told not to say pants, because I say pants, and I had a British person be like, yo, he didn't say yo. He's like, pants mean underwear, we call pants trousers, and I'm like, that's silly. Anyways, so he's wearing denim trousers, jeans, whatever. He can feel the smoky evil thing burning him through it. It hurts, it's painful. Hunter starts hacking away at the monster with her spear, and the smoke tentacle finally lets go of him. And so she saves Richard, and Richard almost died because he couldn't back up a couple steps, because he didn't know there was a giant smoke monster living in the gap. And when he looks down, where his pants had, wherever that the smoky tendril monster thing touched him, his pants have no color to them anymore. So they've been completely bleached away, and like his leg hurts really, and his leg and ankle hurt really bad. So he starts rolling the fabric up really carefully, and he's like his legs all mottled and blistered, and so his leg's pretty fucked up. He's terrified. He's never been attacked by a monster before when he's trying to take the underground. Richard's just, it's another rough day for Richard. And he's like, I've never had that happen before. And she's like, you've never been part of the underside before. So, lots of risks in this magical world. And then, he doesn't cry or anything, and he doesn't like complain. He just wanders back over to the wall where the other people are. And he's like, I'm fine. So he's fine. He's saying he's fine because he wants to be fine. De Carabas is a dick. He's like, there really is nothing quite like total ignorance, is there? So, like, De Carabas just has no use for Richard. He's pissed he's along, and his job is basically just to be important and smart, and someone like Richard is a hindrance, and he just has all these dickish things to say. But, like, it's kind of funny, but, like, you feel bad for Richard, because it's not like Richard has to be here. Well, I mean, he did ask to come with them, but he only has to come with them because of, like, helping her made his life so crazy and whatever. Scene change time. So, Mr. Kroop and Mr. Vandemar are back in their crazy hospital hideout, which is gross and disgusting. We get a long description about broken glass, mildewy walls, weeds growing and tangling, a fountain that hasn't worked in years, so it's all gross, and there's like frogs spawning in it, and it's crows hang out around there. There's slugs. Ooh, and I like this word. So, slugs sprawled indolently. I like indolently. It's like a good word, isn't it? So it's like slowly or lazily, which, I mean, slugs don't really move any other way, but I just like that word. But yeah, so it's more description, beetles, smashed up plastic things, burnt up mattresses. I don't know why they would be burnt up, but they're just burnt mattresses. Mr. Kroop and Vandemar are uneasy. The one is pacing circles, the other one is kicking and beating the wall. So they're pissed about their plan that failed, because they wanted to set Dora up with that bodyguard and it didn't work, and they're just pissed and they're stuck there waiting for something. And then the phone rings. So a telephone rings loudly, and they're both confused by the noise, but then they find it, and there's a receiver halfway down a pile of rubble on top of some water-stained medical records. See, I told you phones would keep coming up. Broken wires trailed from the back of it. So he's holding a phone receiver, and like the cord is dangling from it, but there's like broken wires trailing off. So he's literally holding a receiver that's attached to nothing, but he's still getting this phone call. So it's our magical phone call again. And who's ever on the other end of the phone is yelling at them about how stupid an idea it was, that the plan with Varney and the bodyguard thing didn't work out, and so they're getting berated, and Mr. Kroop is like, no, we're not this, we're not that, we're not unprofessional. So they're kind of having a back and forth spat, and then Mr. Kroop gets angry. Like, at first he seems like he's kind of intimidated by the person on the other end of the line, because he's like getting pale and stuff, and he sounds a bit like he's intimidated, but then I guess you don't know what the other person on the other line is saying, but whatever they say makes him mad. He flips his tone, and he starts getting angry, and he's like, starts rattling off the things that him and Mr. Vandemar had done in the past, and like why you should fear them and respect them because they're good at what they do. And so he names off this list of accomplishments, and it's pretty ridiculous. Mr. Vandemar and myself burned down the city of Troy, brought back the Black Plague, brought the Black Plague to Flanders, assassinated a dozen kings, 5 popes, 100 heroes, and 2 accredited gods. Our last commission before this was the torturing to death of an entire monastery in 16th century Tuscany. We are utterly professional. And then who's ever on the other line is talking, and then Mr. Kroop comes back with my point, because I guess the person on the other line had said, like, what's the point of everything you told me? But Mr. Kroop is like, well, my point is, he gives another big speech about how his point is like they're the baddest of the bad, they're assassins and killers, and they're good at their job. So how dare you doubt them? And then the person on the other line says some stuff, and Mr. Kroop gets even more mad because he finds out they're not allowed to kill Door, and they're not allowed to kill the Upworlder, which is Richard. So that means that who's ever on their line told them not to kill Door or Richard, which pisses Mr. Kroop off even more because he's like originally was commissioned, I think he was supposed to kill her. Because in the first couple of chapters, he had that one, his canary in the coal mine that was going after her. And they had planned to kill her. They had her cornered before she escaped to Richard back in the beginning. But apparently there's a change of plan, and they have to capture her. They're to capture her and bring her to their boss. And so Mr. Kroop is disgusted and angry and sulky, and Mr. Vandemar is annoyed. And that's where we leave them. So they are angry and sulky, and they've got to come up with a new plan, and then we get a scene change. And we're back to Richard. And Richard is waiting against the wall with Door. So they've not moved since we left them. They're still on the platform, and he scoots back against the wall to stand by Door, so he's far away from the gap. No more smoke tentacle monsters. And he's kind of just looking at her, because he's against the wall. He's leaning against the wall next to her, and he's just describing her. So it's like him looking at her. She was little. She said very little. She chews her nails. She has reddish hair. Her eyes are strange colored. They seem to change color. She wears her leather jacket, but she's very tiny, so she's like looking out into the world from inside her leather jacket because it kind of overpowers her a bit. And she reminds him of a child he had seen a long time ago. So yeah, he's just thinking about her a bit. And speaking of thinking about her and her description, Natalie Dormer, Margarine, our smirking whore from Highgarden, she played Door in the TV series. So that's cool. I definitely think I'm gonna watch that one. I think I'm gonna wait to finish abridging the book and then watch it and maybe do like a little recap, or maybe just watch it because I don't know. But I'm definitely gonna watch this. I haven't yet. I'm going to. So anyways, Hunter is standing on the other side of Door, looking around the platform. The Carabas slipped away. He said he told them to wait, and he slipped away. And then, so yeah, he came back chewing a piece of candy, and he's like, don't ask me where I've been, I was taking care of business, because Richard had the audacity to ask him. And he comes back with a piece of paper, and he announces that the train that's coming up is the Earl's Court train. So, because they're trying to find the Earl, and the Earl's holding court on a train. And so a normal train comes up, like just a normal everyday train, but then there's the last car of it is not lit. So like a train has sliding doors and windows and such, so, and there's electric lights obviously inside the train, as well. So you can see inside them and whatnot. And this train is last carriage is dark, like completely dark, and the Carabas comes up to it and knocks on it in like a special rhythmy patterny way, and the door opens just a little bit, and they're like, who is it? And de Carabas says, the Lady Door and her companions. And the last line, the door slid open all the way, and they were inside Earl's Court. And that is the end of chapter 6.